Okay, so how lucky are we? The high today is going to be 31.
Yeah.
You know, we're used to 9 below. But I just got back from Miami, and I wasn't on vacation. Because after I retired from the fire department, I became a flight attendant.
Oh, really?
Yes. So even though I wasn't on vacation, it was warm. I got to feel the sun. I got to walk around the town in my shorts, my t-shirt. And as much as I know we all love our Minnesota winters,
We do.
I'd like to, yeah, most of us, some of us, less of us maybe than I believe. I'd like to give you all an opportunity to feel that warmth. And what I believe is that the mind is powerful. Everything that we've chosen to do in our lives, we thought of it first. And all of it starts right here. So I would like to take you on a 2-minute journey in our minds. If you will, please imagine that you're in a warm place, a beach on vacation. The sun is rising. You already feel the warm ocean air on your skin. And it's the last day of your trip, so you and your traveling companion are planning a quiet dinner in your kitchen-equipped Airbnb. You're going to be preparing the main dish, and you've already decided it's going to be the fresh catch of the day. After all, you're in Miami. Or some other beach location, wherever you may have imagined it. So you walk down the pier, the fishing boats are coming in, and that's where you're going to purchase your just caught fish. You step up to the boat, and the fishing boat captain hands you the most beautiful fish you've ever seen. It's perfect. You look into that captain's eyes. You smile and you nod because you got exactly what you hoped for. And guess what? Your dinner, that was amazing. And then the next day, you wake up, you're already packed for your vacation. You get to the airport, you zip through security, it's a perfect day. You get on the airplane, and you look to the left where the cockpit door is open. That captain looks right back at you and says, "Welcome aboard." Now, the flight was pretty uneventful. You may have noticed me in the aisles. I was the one passing out drinks and pretzels. You just finished that great book you're reading, The Fire She Fights. You're feeling inspired. And now the plane is in its final descent into Minneapolis. You look out the window at the snow-covered ground. The plane hits the runway, and it's a rough landing. The airplane skids before it comes to a complete stop, still on the runway. And then the captain makes an announcement, letting you know that the tire blew. The plane's not going to make it to the gate. You hear fire engines in the distance. And a second later, the flight attendant opens the door. And unlike that warm ocean breeze, Minnesota wind rushes in. Air stairs are brought to the plane, and one by one, you all make your way down those steps onto the ground, and a fire captain greets you, takes you by the arm, and directs you to a warm bus. It's just parked a short way from the aircraft where you join your travel companion, and you're both safe. Everyone on the plane is safe. Now, if you could take just a moment and think, again, back to that fishing boat. So you're back at the fishing boat, and the captain hands you that fish. I'm wondering, did you see this guy? Or did you see her? That pilot who welcomed you on board, did the captain look like this? I just took that photo on my way back. I went to the cockpit. Or like these women. That firefighter who directed you to the bus, did the captain look like this? Or like me? Or maybe like this woman. Or some of my former coworkers. Now, I often, when I hear about captains, imagine men when I think of that. And I get asked 3 questions about my career more than any other. 1, what made you want to be a firefighter? 2, why did you stay? And 3, most recently, why did you write this book? So starting with that number 1 question, what made me want to become a firefighter? I have to say, it wasn't an easy answer. I have never replied by saying, I want to be just like my mom, or my aunt, or my grandma, or even my neighbor's mom, aunt, or grandma. I never said that I want to be just like her because there were no women firefighters that I knew of. And I grew up learning biases, just like all of us do. And like many of you, I heard from more than one person, you can't do that. That's for boys, it's not ladylike. I mean, how many of us saying, boys got the muscles, girls got the brains? Funny, I don't remember the next verse, but I sang that when I was a kid. And when I behaved in a rough or tough manner as a kid, yeah, that's me. I mean, we could have seen it when I was 4, right? Maybe I was even naughty, but never did I get my hair tousled and sent off with a wink and heard the phrase, boys will be boys. I did have 3 brothers, so I heard the phrase, and I heard them excused with the same phrase. So if it's true that we have to think it before we can become it, how did I get here? Well, I was working at the park board in Minneapolis as a youth outreach counselor, and the park where I was assigned was Elliott Park, if you're familiar with the parks in Minneapolis. I see some nods out there. Miss Hiring, you should apply. You'd be perfect for that job. And she must have saw the confusion in my face, because she continued and she said, I know a woman and you remind me of her. You don't give up. So while I didn't see it myself, she saw it for me, and I applied. Why? Well, 1, she was my boss and she told me to. But secondly, and more meaningful, she said, you don't give up. Because she saw something I didn't. And that something, it felt like a compliment. When I submitted the application, I didn't care if I got the job. But still, I went to the tryout. It was at the Minneapolis Convention Center. And that changed everything for me. I saw women dressed in fire coats, climbing ladders, all the way to the ceiling. And if you've been in the Minneapolis Convention Center, you know that's hot. The women, they look strong. They look like Amazon women. They look like Xena warrior princess in bunker pants. They're running up flights of stairs with hoses on their shoulder, wearing helmets and boots. I saw them, and seeing them, I saw possibilities for me. You know, I had always felt like something like this was inside of me, but I didn't know what it was until I saw it. I had never yet dreamed that I could be a hero because it's not ladylike. It's for the boys. But once I saw it, I wanted to be a firefighter more than anything. A career that I didn't see as an option, it was all I could think about. And those thoughts finally led me to becoming a firefighter and realizing the dream I never knew I could have. Now, this can happen for any of us, at any time in our lives. Especially as women, we've had stereotypes drilled into us from a very young age, and when we stop believing them and no longer follow the expectations, we can do the things that have always been inside of us. I mean, think about it. I became a flight attendant after the age of 50. You know, my mom loves this picture more than anything else. Just imagine a mom, she has 4 kids, 1 girl and 3 boys. I'm the only girl. I'm the only one who played sports. I grew up to be a firefighter. I never wore dresses. She never made me. And then finally I got to send her this photo. She felt joy. And you know what? I did this after years of being told, you're not pretty enough, tall enough, hetero enough, ladylike enough. I became a flight attendant despite having an uncanny resemblance to Sean Penn. Can you see it? For those of you that can't, let me help. And some say it's much better now than it once was, and that's true. Women are firefighters. There are women in all kinds of professions where once there were none. I'm sure a lot of you have seen some of those changes happen. But it's not enough. There's a reason why women in the fire service have remained at just 4% for 40 years. Now let me say that again. Women nationally have remained at 4% for 40 years. Now, that next question I get asked often is, especially after people read my book now, why did you stay for 20 years in that toxic environment? And they weren't talking about the smoke. And that one's easier for me. I love the work. You know, it's not just about fighting fire and rescuing cats from trees. They do both have their measure of adrenaline, but I also perform CPR on people who are clinically dead and then walk through the door of the fire station 3 days later with cookies. That was me. I saved that life. I've been to New Orleans to assist after Hurricane Katrina. I've cut people out of cars who were trapped and believed it was the end for them. As a firefighter, I delivered 13 babies.
Wow.
One was on a park bench. One was on the kitchen floor. I delivered twins on a twin bed in an apartment building. And I've even delivered one still in the amniotic sac. Yeah. No wonder I want to be a firefighter. So for that story, I was on engine 14 in North Minneapolis. We pulled up to the home. The woman is in the kitchen, leaning on the counter. The living room, there's a bunch of men in there. The rest of the crew I was with, all men. The ambulance shows up after us. Men. And the woman's standing there and she's like, I think it's coming. And everyone's like, no, your water isn't broken. She can't walk, she says. So we put her on a stretcher, bring her out to the ambulance, load her in there. All the men, including the men who are in the living room, are all out on the sidewalk, yucking it up. And I'm in there with her, I'm setting up the IV. And I'm setting up the IV, and she says to me, the baby's coming. And I look, and water's not broken, and so I look underneath, and I see something coming. But honestly, it's like this. It's like this. It's like a little ball. It's like a little black ball, and I look at it, and I go, I don't know. So I poke that bag, and inside there is a baby.
Wow.
Yeah, and she was exhausted, so I didn't tell her what happened. But I did say to her, what are you going to name this baby? And she said, 7. And I'm like, 7? Okay. Still, I didn't want to bother her with extra questions. And then she says, would you go get my husband? And I'm like, there's a bunch of guys out there. What's his name? And she says, 38. So then 7 years later, I'm again at the park board. It's funny how our lives come full circle. But I'm there now with the fire engine, and kids are coming onto the fire engine. They're checking it all out. And my driver, Ravonda, when this one little boy comes on the fire engine, she says, hey, you're a cutie. What's your name? And he says, 7. And I say, I delivered you. And there he is.
Cool.
I mean, 86% of firefighters' calls are medical. Yeah, and that requires compassion. And as we all know, we have a lot of it as women. Less than 5% are fires. And what makes up for the rest? What makes up for the rest is a little less traumatic, but still so very rewarding. As firefighters, we respond to people's homes when they fall and they can't get up. We help them up. Being a firefighter, that gave me an opportunity to be a hero for people on their worst day. And it gave me a feeling that what I was doing was important, that I was special and needed no matter my gender. And that feeling is what kept me coming back, despite the toxic environment, despite being treated as less than and being harassed. I wasn't willing to give up the dream that I finally found. And there are times, yes, of course, I doubted that I belonged there. When my mistakes were highlighted above and beyond my accomplishments. And I believe that's a big part of the reason why women leave and we remain such a small percentage of this amazing career. But to help me stay, I focused more on what made me happy instead of those who tried to make me feel invisible. I mean, if I didn't stay, the little girls at the block parties and the little girls that come visit the fire station, they wouldn't see me. And if they didn't see me, they might not see themselves being exactly who they've always wanted to be. They may not imagine themselves climbing a ladder to rescue a cat from a tree. They may never even want to deliver a baby on a park bench. They may have no desire to drive a fireboat over the waves of the Mississippi and save a drowning victim, or even, they might not even want to put out a fire. But seeing me, that makes it more possible for those girls to imagine their own dreams. And then boys, when boys see women in roles they admire, that contributes to an attitude where both genders are valued. We all know boys have a lot of examples to inspire them to feel important. One day, I had a class visiting our fire station. We happened to be staffed with an all-women crew. I heard someone saying here earlier that they didn't know women could become firefighters. So for us to be staffed with an all-women crew, yeah, that's rare. And during the fire station tour, the kids climbed on the fire trucks, they tried to shimmy up the fire pole. There's no mention about us being all women, except for a few of the nods from the teachers. They were also women. And then at the end of the tour, we answered questions about fire hose and fire engine tools. They asked about where we sleep, of course, what we eat. But the kids' biggest question, where's the fire dog? So before the group left, they all were standing in front of me, looking up at me, and I said to them, I want you all to know, boys can be firefighters too. Like all of you, the teachers laughed. The girls looked at me like maybe we had an inside joke. And there was this one little boy. He laughed and he looked at the ground, and then he looked up at me with a mischievous group, kind of like a little smile, and he said, in a tone that sounded like he thought I was silly, we know boys can be firefighters. Because the boys already know they can be anything. And girls, they need to more than hear it, they need to see it. And then the boys also need to see us in these roles where women are awesome. I'm just glad that I had an opportunity to show them. Because I have been also in this situation where, yes, that's me, but behind is a man. So it was an all-male crew, and I was the only woman. And the male firefighter stood in front of that group and said girls could be firefighters too. And the girls kind of squinted a little bit and nodded cautiously. So I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to be there and show them. So why did I become a firefighter? Why did I stay? And finally, why did I write The Fire She Fights? Well, it's because I saw my dream in the women at the convention center. And once I was in, I knew the fire department is where I belonged. no matter the opinions or criticisms of others. And finally, I wrote the book hoping others, especially women, see it in themselves. Maybe it's not a firefighter. Maybe it's a pilot or a fishing boat captain, or maybe it's a mom who stays home and raises her kids to believe in themselves. The object of the dream, that doesn't matter. What matters is that it's your dream and you know that you are the one who can manifest it. And we still got a ways to go. When will society finally understand that women deserve to see and fulfill their dreams as much as the men do? And in turn, make our society much stronger. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but I am not waiting. Just as it was unexpected that I become a firefighter, it was also a surprise that I became a flight attendant. And I don't know what's next for me. Honestly, me winning a gold medal in the Olympics for synchronized swimming, that's more believable than me writing a novel. And you'd agree if you knew me better. But again, that was a thought that became a reality. So my ultimate goal in writing this book with 4 main characters as women firefighters is to be a drop in a bucket of many stories with women as heroes. So that someday, when someone mentions a fishing boat captain, a pilot, a firefighter, a military captain, my hope is that we imagine women as often as we imagine men in those roles. I also wrote the book for women who are already in those roles in male-dominated professions so that they feel validated and seen. I've had so many comments from women who are in these roles thanking me. They felt so alone, they weren't sure they would continue in the career. And after reading the book, they felt a little less alone, and I gotta say that feels good to me. It makes me feel that the hard work of writing a book, when I first had to learn how to become a writer, because I was a firefighter, it feels good. And I do believe that the path to fulfilling our dreams is to first see them. I see a future where women are valued equally as men, and our society is stronger because of it. All right, do we have any questions? Thank you, everyone. Thank you. On the aisle?
Can you tell us your scariest moment being a firefighter?
You bet I can.
And can you repeat the question, Tracy?
Yes, we're leading to question number 4 that I most often get asked.
Really?
What is my scariest moment being a firefighter? Now, I could tell you it was the time that I was outside of a home, up on the parapet, kind of on the little roof where the porch is, and inside I can see no fire inside that window. I break the window and it's a backdraft and it blows me off the roof. But I catch the side of the ladder on my way down, and I'm able to grab with my feet. The guy next to me, he fell down. But it was scary. It was super scary. I've been in fire buildings where I wasn't sure how I got in there and what was my way out, because when you're in there, you cannot see the hand in front of your face. It's amazing how dark it is because of the smoke based down. But honestly, my most scariest moment was a day that I disobeyed an order. We were all going to the training tower. We do it once a year, and the head of the training division was this really guy who didn't want women on the job. So he created this evolution where we would take the fire hose and walk with it 75 feet with the nozzle open. So that's 150 pounds of pressure. And a lot of us could do it, but lighter people are not going to be able to do it. And we never do that on the fire ground. We always have someone else hold the nozzle and then help the person walk up with it. It's the most effective way to put the fire out. It's the safest way for both men and women. So anyway, I went to the tower and I was all ready for it. I was all ready to say I wasn't going to do it because I had heard that what they were doing, and I thought it's time to take a stand. I don't know about you, but there's something about getting a degree in public affairs at the Humphrey that gives me more knowledge, and then I just see things more, and I was just so critical of it. So I decided I was going to disobey the order, and I heard not one word that led up to where we had to go outside and actually do the training, because my heart was beating on the outside of my shirt the whole time. The worst thing you can do on the fire department is disobey an order. So when the chief said, we're going to go outside and do this, I raised my hand and I said, Chief, respectfully, I decline, and I'm ordering my crew to do the same. So that was my scariest true moment in the fire department.
For you.
Yes?
So you said that about 4% of the firefighters nationally are women. What percentage in Minnesota? How long do women stay as firefighters? 20, 30 years? Tell us about your training also.
Okay, so the 4%, yes, that's national. And then in Minneapolis, we were the leader at one time. In the late 90s, we had 17% women. So it was amazing. We had a women's association. It talks about it a little bit in the book about how the women's association helped women to learn how to be the firefighters and how to use our bodies in a way so that we could pass the test. Because it is the same test, as much as I get asked this often too. Yes, the women and the men have the exact same test. The physical test, mental test, all of it. So now, so that was in the late 90s. Now in 2022, we are down to 7% in Minneapolis. So still, it is a little bigger than the national average, but we're going down in numbers. And some people, and this is probably true, there was a time where people got extra points for military service. And I know there are also a lot of women in the military, but again, just like how, percentage compound going up, they also can go down. So, so that may have been part of it. And then women stay in the fire department a little less long than the men. I think it's partly because of our strength, and we realize that there's more to the world than this. It's not where, it is a big part of the identity of all firefighters, being a firefighter. Society gives us so much leeway we are so very human. But they do give us a lot of leeway. So, but women stay there still. Some of my friends have stayed over 30 years. I stayed 21 years. We get a pension after you've stayed 20 years, and the best is to leave when you're 55, because then you get a full pension, but there's a little percentage loss for the years if you leave before that. And then as far as the training goes, do you mean training at the fire station, or do you mean training to be a firefighter?
To become.
Okay, so to become a firefighter, first there is a test. Now when I came on, like I said, it was at the convention center. We went on up, we had to prove we could climb that ladder. Actually for me, it was a 90-pound dummy that was part of the test. And we had to drag that dummy 90 feet and then put it on this pedestal, a little like the stage, but it was a little taller, and it was a small square. And then you had to adjust the arms and legs and get it perfect in the square. I have no idea what that has to do with firefighting, but that was what it was. So I watched the other people going, and I saw them and saw how they adjusted the arms and legs. And then I was up, I grabbed the dummy, I ran to the end, and I threw the dummy on the square, and the timer said, done. So even a few seconds when there's thousands of applicants shoots you way up the list, right? So it was silly, but anyway, it was good for me. And so for that at the convention center, that was that time. Now there is a test, it's called a CPAT, where you have to walk on a Stairmaster with a 40 or 50 pound vest and you can't touch the sides and you have to do that for 15 minutes. And then there's evolutions where you drag a hose, you drag the dummy, it's 185 pounds, and you do all those kinds of things. And then for me, also, every year we had to take a test where we would take an extension, take a ladder, 25-foot ladder, put it up against the building, pull it out, climb up, go up there, pull the target saw. It's like a round saw on the ground, and you put your foot in the handle and you pull that 10 times. And then after you do that, you go down 2 flights of stairs, you go to the fire engine, there's a bundle in there that weighs about 50 pounds. You put that on your shoulder, you walk back up those steps, you put it in a square, you go out back to that parapet and you chop on the simulator. And it's not about strength, it's about making it perfectly square. So that's one thing we were able to teach women to get us, because if you do 50 chops, you're way more tired if you do 25. So getting it perfectly square on that little machine. And then after that, you drop the sledgehammer, you go downstairs, you get a charged hose line. It's not turned on, but it's just charged, so it's heavy. You drape that over your shoulder, you walk through a building, you bring it through, you hit a target with the water, then you walk back up the 2 flight of stairs. There's a 185-pound dummy at the start of a maze, and you pick that dummy up, you walk through the maze backwards, and it's way too hard to do it forward because the dummy is like over a foot taller than you. So then you walk that dummy through the maze backwards, and there's a window at the end, and you take that dummy and you run and you throw it in the window so it's hanging out, and the window is a little higher than a normal window, and then the window's all open. Then you walk back down the stairs and there's a 40-pound fan with floppy hooks on it, and you take that over and you bring it, put it on your shoulders, and you flop it up and you hang it on the door. Done. So that's the test that they have each year for us. And yes, everyone had to pass it, and you had to do, that test was 12 minutes or less that you had to do that. So it's hard, but we can do it. Yes?
I'm curious about the physical training. How did you get that strong to be able to do that?
Well, I worked out at the gym. I made sure my cardio was strong. That's really important because no matter how strong you are, if you run out of breath, you're not going to make it to the end. And you want to have a lot of energy. So I did that. And then, like I said earlier, the Women's Association, it wasn't there when I came on the job, but we developed that. And by doing that, we taught women how to use our legs. So lifting a 185-pound dummy is pretty difficult. But we had a technique where you'd go to it, you'd push the dummy up, you'd squat down as low as you can, press your chest against that dummy, and then push with your legs. And then when you start walking backwards, you do not stop until you get to the end because you have momentum. So, you know, it was working out, and I would say many women are strong enough to do the job. I feel like there are way more women who are strong enough to do the job than there are men compassionate enough to do the job. And if you do go to my website, thank you. If you do go to my website, it's The Fire She Fights, I have a blog there, and I wrote one recently, said, why are there so few female firefighters? And in there is an example that's not in the book, a little story in the book of what happened when a group of us went to a home where, I'll just tell you the story, but still go to the blog, okay? Okay, so a group of us went to a home. It was baby not breathing. So we get to the home, and the dad, I assume the dad, meets us at the door and directs us upstairs. And so we go upstairs, and mom throws that baby into my arms, and the baby's obviously not gonna make it. Okay, the baby's gone. The baby's been gone for a while. But I could see that the woman needed some compassion. She needed to feel there was hope in that moment. So I still gave the baby CPR. The man, first of all, when the call came in, he was making breakfast and threw the spatula against the wall and said, "Damn it, what the hell?" So anyway, so he comes up behind me while I'm giving this baby CPR. He goes to the window because the siren of the ambulance pulls up. He opens up the window and he says, "Don't worry, it's just a dead baby." And I mean, to this day, I feel a little teary right now when I think about it, because that was the last thing that that woman needed to hear. So, women in the fire department bring a level of compassion that's missing. So, are we strong enough? Yes, I'd say many of us can pass that test. I mean, women can do a lot when we put our minds to it. I'm sure all of you have done many things that somebody said that you could not do before.
Another question?
What sports did you play? You said you were the only one in your family who played sports. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I played soccer. I ran track and field. It was a 440 then, now it's the 400. It's just one time around the track. I played basketball and soccer. All of those I played in high school, and then in college I played basketball and softball. Oh, I also played softball in high school center field.
There's gonna be more questions?
Yeah?
This is silly. I'm wondering if you've gotten any feedback from men who have read your book.
Yeah, that's not silly at all. There is one man from North Carolina, and he did a review for my book, and he said that not only do the women need to read this book, but the men need to read this book. But the sad thing is, many men won't, because they will have to realize either they are the one who is doing these behaviors or the one who's looking the other way. That was meaningful for me. Coming from a man who gets it, who can see it. Now, the other men at the fire department, I did hear one guy said to another of the women firefighters, "Hey, if this stuff really happened, what's in Tracy's book," and it did, we need to do something about it. Now, did he do something about it? No, he hasn't. And we need the men to do something about it. We need partners in this. It's the only way. Partnerism is the way that we can get through the other side. Women cannot do it alone. We need all of us. Yeah?
I was just wondering, your last comment made me think of this. During your 21 years in the department, did you notice a change of attitudes of the men you were working with? Did it get better? Did it get worse? Did it stay the same?
You know what's funny is the older men got better. I think they saw us being there and realized that we had a lot to contribute. You know, some of them. It was the younger men when they came on. I mean, one new rookie, I'm a captain now, right? One new rookie comes on and says, "You know, I don't mind working with women firefighters." And I said to him, "You know what? I'm not interested if you're okay working with me. You're the rookie. I need to be okay working with you." Thanks. So yeah, I do think some of the older men learned. Yeah, Nadine?
Yeah, so this is fictionalized kind of version. What about the other, so what were the comments from the other women that you kind of used their stories?
So when I collected the stories, it was awesome. Some of the women, I have been working alongside of them, sleeping at the fire station, going on these calls, going out with them. And I had no idea how awesome they were until I did the interviews. And you know what else? They were all just like me, and I was like all of them. We had similar feelings with different experiences, with the same experiences, but just some different details. But then when the book came out, and And as it was coming out, I think some women got scared because it's vulnerable. The stories in there are true. So, and although, you know, I didn't use anyone's names, and what I did is I took the stories of 30 women, I combined them to create 4 characters. So I tried to group the experiences, the childhood experiences, the stuff that happens outside, and the stuff that happens at the firehouse. I tried to group them into 4 different personalities. So nobody knows, nobody can say, hey, you're Brazil in the book, or you're Dana. But they will say, hey, I know you're the woman who ate the ice cream out of the men's mouth. So there are some things that are so obvious, and I do think as the time came up, some of the women got scared and they said, hey, but the book was already out, and they're like, you know, it was already at the printer, and they're like, hey, I don't want anyone to know anyone in there is me. So while they told me their stories, and they want their stories to be heard, it's so very scary. And I do keep in touch with them, I check in with them. I tried to put, for like the videos, I tried to use women who weren't interviewed for my videos and my little trailers about the books, just so that, I mean, some are, but there are some people are like, oh, awesome, this is great, thank you so much for writing it. People can hear our stories, and then some are scared, just like all of us, I guess. Yes?
You plan to write another book?
No. My partner Renee here, also my tech person, just looked at me with like the squinted eyes because she was there with me through the whole process. Thank you, Renee, for getting me to take walks. I hope so much. Because so I didn't know how to write a book, but I was in a group of women firefighters, and so many times we've said, one of us should write a book. One of us should write a book. And then I went to the Humphrey, and one of my teachers, one of my professors there said, you are a skilled writer. And I was like, I am. So then when the next time that the women in the group said one of us should write a book, I said, I'll do it. And then I started writing. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. So I took classes at the Loft. I took classes at UCLA, a writer's program, to really help me figure out how to write a story, because it is a fictional novel. It reads like a story. The characters progress, and all the events in there, though, are actual true events.
But now that you know how to do it, you see, now you can do another one.
One of the flight attendants who's read my book said, would you write a book about us? Because she's like, everyone thinks, you know, that we're just wild and fancy and free, and I want them to know the real us. And I said, you write it then. So yes, I cannot say that I definitely will not write another book. I don't have a plan to do that right now. Right now, it's like a ton more time to do marketing so that people can find the story.
Yeah.
And that's also a lot of work. Which, by the way, on my table back there, I do have a coloring page for you. I just started doing a coloring book. It's not quite done yet, but I was able to get one of them done because, you know, kids, not just the little girls, but little boys, when they color these pictures of females being firefighters, you know, I'm hoping it'll be in their unconscious that, you know, that women are awesome, because we are. And so there's one free one there. You can sign up for when there's more. I'm going to do some digital downloads on my website, so there's a sign-up list too if you're interested in that. And of course, my book's back there. Any last questions? Thank you, Nadine, for inviting me, and thank